Hello, everyone. This is Naveen Samuel, and I have with me Katherine Eitel, and she's been grateful enough to join us in today's podcast. Katherine is the CEO of Lioness Learning. And Katherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
All right. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I'd love to. As you said, I'm the CEO of Lioness Learning. We're actually rebranding our company. It's a really interesting time. Soon it will be Lion Speak. And the reason, we'll talk more, as we move forward about what it is about the lions and lionesses that impacts my company and the work that we do. But the company is basically a communications coaching company. Our main emphasis is in dentistry and discretionary health care. And I, just sort of came into this like a lot of people, probably like a lot of your listeners. I started early in my early 20s as a chairside dental assistant, working my way through college. And at one point, our gal that was running the administrative part of the practice became ill. She was in a car accident, and we thought she'd be back fairly soon. And so we were just kind of all of us pitching in to, help the practice survive until she got back. But it took a lot longer, actually several years. So I ended up just sort of being thrown into the administrative area of the practice with no training whatsoever, handed a telephone, handed an appointment book. Back then, I'm gonna date myself for your callers. Back then, it was all a paper appointment book and paper billings, ledger cards and things. But I was just thrown into it, and luckily I had a really supportive team and doctor, but I really learned by the seat of my pants. And so, like a lot of us, I did a lot of the things that I do much better now. I didn't do them very well for quite a long time. And, what that produces for you are some challenges and struggles and roadblocks that really don't need to be there. So I learned on the job, and then eventually I ended up moving and working for a much larger practice, a multi-doctor practice, and managing their entire administrative area and then ultimately the entire office. So that was the beginning of some management level experience. Again, thrown into it, no formal training, and you just sort of learn School of Hard Knocks. And then I moved, that was in Texas, I moved to California and with my husband's work. And I took a job, my first job here was actually the marketing director for a winery, which was my only jaunt outside of dentistry. But what was interesting about that, when I went to work for the winery, it was Callaway Winery, and some of your callers may be familiar if they're golfers with the Big Bertha and the Callaway golf brand. Well, it's the same guy. He had a Midas touch for sure, and he had started this winery in Southern California, and it about 5 or 6 months after I started, it was purchased by Hiram Walker, which is a huge international liquor brand. And so I was instantly thrown into a very large corporate environment with a very different culture, and learning again to navigate that with no support really, or no knowledge of how a large corporation works was super interesting and super broadening for me in terms of my business and professional exposure. So did that for a few years. When I became pregnant with my second son, I just didn't work for a little while they were at home. But once they were in school and I was ready to go back to work, I thought, what do I really want to do now? I've had these very different experiences, worked for a small dental practice, a larger dental practice. I've worked for a corporation outside of dentistry. What do I really want to do? And I took a job with a consulting firm. And it turned out that I didn't really much care for the firm. But I fell in love with teaching. I fell in love with consulting and coaching, and eventually broke away and wrote my own program and began, teaching and consulting that whole career for me. And I've been doing practice management consulting since around 1990 until January of this year. And January of this year, we made a shift, and which is the reason for the rebrand on the company. And we can talk a little bit later about, some other another focus that the company is taking on because of that. But the majority of my career has been in speaking and consulting to dental teams and dentists, and also in the veterinary field, a little bit in the cosmetic surgery field, just any fields where people have to pull out their pocketbook most of the time to make the purchase, so that it's discretionary and it's optional in their minds. And I think that often requires an advanced set of skills for the provider and for their team. So that's what we're interested in coaching and helping. So yeah.
Well, Katherine, that sounds great. I'm sure there's a lot more to that story than what you were able to say in the last 5 minutes. But yeah, going from it looks like you started off in the dental industry, and then you went into the wine industry, and then marketing, consulting, and then so that's a lot of hats to wear there. And it seems to me there was a repeating theme that you were talking about, how you were thrown into a position with no formal training.
Right. Yeah. Right. I have education, but most of the people with college degrees will tell you that their real education started after they, joined the workforce. And so I love that I had to learn to figure some things out on my own. What I know is if we can get the right education at the right time, it can just save us the long learning curve that most of us will eventually get to, but we don't always have to take that long to get, to reduce our stress and to get better results. There are people who have studied and researched and interviewed and, have hands-on experience that can just shorten that curve for us. So we're really committed to that in my company. We're, as I said, a communications coaching company. So what we love to do, what we're passionate about, is helping people, professionals mainly, communicate to anyone else, whether that is a client, a patient, a team, their coworkers, a team, a leader or owner of a business to their team. A lot of different avenues of communication. We're interested in how to make two things happen: how to help those professionals communicate with clarity, with more clarity, so that the person they're communicating to leaves that communication super clear about what's being asked of them, what the expectations are, what the offer is, all of those kinds of things. So a heightened degree of clarity, and simultaneously an increased amount of inspiration or motivation to do it. So it's one thing to be super clear with a patient about how much their treatment costs. It's another to have inspired them in such a way that they want to pull the trigger on it and can't wait to get started. So we're looking always for how can we help anybody, any professional, communicate in a way that has heightened clarity and a much larger dose of inspiration.
Well, Katherine, I have to commend you on everything you're doing, including your amazing psychic ability to predict my next question and answer it before I ask it, too. That is great. So I heard a lot of things. I heard communication. I heard leadership. I heard training. I heard frontline communications. You used the word line and lioness. I'd love to hear more about that, the concept of line. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, So how we came to be involved with anything to do with Lion was kind of a funny story. As all those years of doing full practice management consulting, a full service consulting company, for the first few years, Same trend was going on. I was learning from other good consultants, but really there's no school to go to. You just get in and you give your best practices that you know to an office. And so I had been successful as an office manager, as an administrator, as a chairside assistant. I've been quite successful at that. And of course, we don't know what we don't know. And what I was lacking was not information. And that's most often the case with speakers or trainers. They're not lacking in information or good ideas. What is often lacking is very practical knowledge of how the adult brain actually learns something and makes significant and lasting change. And so while most people I spoke to or consulted with shook their heads and said, yeah, we understand it. Yes, we agree with it. Yes, we think those are great ideas. Yes, we can see how that would help us get, greater success. I would come back in a month or 2 or 3 months, and it was as if I had never been there. And as that rolled on, I became more and more and more frustrated with them, with the learners, with the trainees, with the office and personnel, because I felt like I was giving everything I was supposed to give, all of the important new information and new greater ways to do things, and they just weren't taking it seriously. And I was quite frustrated with them, to tell you the truth. And it sort of became a little cynical or bitter about it for a while, just thinking, well, what difference does it make? Nothing really changes. They just see it as a free day. It's a very expensive day when consultants or trainers come in.
Yeah, of course.
The fees being paid to the consultant, but there's also a loss of production, which can be quite high in some practices, and then the staff's being paid. So it's really this, very expensive day, and for what? And so I saw across my desk a flyer came for a course that had nothing to do with dentistry, but it had to do with how to coach and teach adults in where you got higher, better, immediate results. And so I thought, well, heck, I'm frustrated with this. I'll give this a shot. And I flew to Dallas and for a 2-day course, and I cannot express, I don't think I could find the words for how that course changed the entire direction of my career. Wow. That workshop was solely about how we tend to fire hose people with information, and those people are thirsty for it, but it's coming at them at such a rapid pace and at such a high volume that they cannot get a drink. They just cannot absorb it. And so they go back to work on Monday morning, the bell rings, and they because they have no traction in the new learning, they just revert back to what they know to do. And so it suddenly occurred to me that, there weren't all these bad students and one fantastic teacher. There were a lot of great students and one not so good teacher. And that really set my feet, on the path of learning more and more. So I've been in a study since then for the last 10 years or so about how adults learn. And once I started incorporating that into my training, my results went through the roof. I mean, they literally went through the roof. So my company took off, and I began speaking in a lot of places and being asked to speak in a lot of places all over. And so the career really took off. And colleagues also took notice. I belong to a couple of organizations of coaching and coaches and consultants. And some of my friends said, "You are just on fire. You're having more fun. You're getting better results. You're getting paid more than you ever have. And what's your secret?" And so I just the first time we did the workshop was on how adults learn, and it was just kind of a gift to my friends. They paid for the hotel room, and I shared what I knew. And I was at the end of that course. My friend said, "You've got something here. You've got something that other people are going to want to know." And that has birthed, 8 years of workshops for trainers, coaches, and speakers. And I was looking for a story or an analogy or a metaphor that would sort of be a fun container for the workshop. And I couldn't find it. And I happened to be walking through my living room one day on a weekend, and my son at the time was watching a Discovery Channel program of how lionesses teach their cubs to hunt.
Oh,
and I stopped and watched it with him because as that show, and actually people have probably seen that show. I just saw it on about a month ago, so it plays every now and then. But, you know, in short, it was a show about these 7 stages that scientists have identified that a lioness will predictably take her cubs through to move them from, you know, complete dependence upon her when they're born to complete independence from her in a relatively short amount of time and in a pretty hostile environment. And it occurred to me that those 7 steps were they were just the perfect mirror image of what great teachers use, what great leaders use, what really great communicators use. And so that became initially this great story for the course. But like anything, the more we teach something, the better we learn it, or the deeper we learn it. And as I have taught that course over the years, what I've realized is that story is not just a story for teachers. It's really a leadership principle. And so from that, we developed something called the Lioness Principle, which really speaks to this idea that while it does look like, and she is teaching these cubs these 7 steps, the truth is they were actually already born with the instinct to hunt, with the knowledge. You know, if you had a house cat and a little kitten, you know, and a butterfly or a lizard, you know, runs by, they don't have to go learn 7 steps from their mother to know what to do with the lizard. They're born with the instinct to chase it, to, you know, capture it, and so they have this innate understanding and ability. And so the lioness job then, even though it looks like she's teaching them, is really to use those 7 stages to tease out of the cubs what they already know, and then to give them an environment where they can explore it, they can expand it, they can master it. So my contention and the Lioness Principle contends that all of us have that. All mammals, and certainly the human mammal, is born with instinctive knowledge and greatness and potential. And so it's in all of our employees, it's in all of our patients, it's in all of our leaders, and we forget. We have this big egoic brain that kind of has a conversation all the time with this instinct and overrides it and negates it. And so what we're committed to, and what this Lioness Principle and this whole idea of the lions and how they operate and what we can learn from them, is that I want to help dental practices, business owners, office managers, people who are out there trying to get a group of people to move in a common direction and accomplish something terrific and significant and meaningful. I want to help them see that not only do their people have something greater in them, but they do too, and that their job is to find constructive ways to help create an environment where we can tease out of them what they actually already know they've just forgotten or they've ignored, and to help them build and master those skills in a really powerful way. And so that's where that's come from. That's why our company is about that. One of the reasons we moved from Lioness Learning, or moving from Lioness Learning to Lion Speak, is that there was some confusion about was our training or were our courses geared just for women or just for females. And so we didn't want to have, go forward for the next 10 or 20 years with that idea that it might just be for women, because it isn't. It is what the lioness does, but all of the cubs, the lions, and the lionesses all have a very important role to make that whole team work. And so that's what we're really about teaching, are those kinds of dynamics. So that's kind of a long story, but that's really how it evolved, and it's really grown, and it's amazing. I meet people now that my name doesn't mean anything to them, but they'll look down at my name tag or something and say, oh, you're the lioness. You teach the Lioness Principle, and that's when we knew. When that started happening, we knew that the brand really had really had legs. It really had some traction, and we could do some great things with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. You talked about transformational training, or in your bio, you talk about that. So can you give us a specific example of how you're able to help an office or maybe a company see transformation?
Yeah, transformation is a pretty big promise. You know, that's a big promise if you think about what that word means.
Sure.
It's bigger than change. It's bigger than improvement. Transformation is a big promise. So we don't throw it around lightly, but we feel strongly that we have found some really innovative and powerful ways to at least create the ability for people to have transformation, or for teams and businesses to do that. So a couple different ways in answer to your question. We really have 2 tracks in my company.
Okay.
All of them fall under communications coaching. So we love, as I said, helping anybody communicate with more clarity and inspiration. We spend a lot of our time with small solo practices, healthcare practices of some kind, or very small businesses. I love those. One of the things that we do is we do transformational retreats, which we call Lion Camp retreats, or sometimes they're called Recalibration Retreats. The idea is that we coach the owner, who we think is really the only person, or if there are multiple owners, the only people, who should be writing and constructing and delivering the business's vision. They should be the ones who. It's not a project for the whole team. It's a project for the owner, and because the workforce, the team, should be in service to the vision of the business owner. Because if we get that right, it's a unique perspective. Everyone, just as all individuals are unique, their vision for the future is unique. And so the prerogative of an owner, and I think also the responsibility of the owner, is to get clear on, at least at this point, what am I attempting to create here? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Where's, how do we measure it? All of those things. But how would we know? We have to have a destination in mind. So we coach them on what is it, and we don't do this. We do it differently than a lot of other companies. I'm not writing it for something to go on the wall framed. It might, or pieces of it might. But what we're wanting to coach them on is, how do we help you stand up before your team and conversationally deliver a picture of the future that they have extreme clarity about when you're done, and they're super inspired to get on the bus and help you do it. And the rest of that retreat, so the retreat actually, so there's a lot of pre-coaching ahead with the owner, and then we help them get ready to deliver this really remarkable conversation with their team. And they do it. We introduce the concept, and then they deliver this, because we can't deliver that to their team, not in the same way. It has to come from that authentic person, place, the owner.
Right.
And so
you
we help them.
The same results as before, right?
Exactly. And they don't want to hear from what the consultant. It seems 3 people removed. It's really got to come from. It's like someone else parenting your kids. They've got to do it. So we coach them. We give them tons of support. They deliver it, and then we spend the rest of the day or 2 days, however big the team is. And it's always off-site. We always pick a very interesting location off-site. So people show up very differently in those locations, and we have a lot of fun helping them get creative about them. But the rest of the team, then we become the facilitators. I become a facilitator for, now that you've heard this vision from this owner, now your job is to decide, What do I think about that? Does that align with where I'm going in my life? And if so, then how do I add my creative ideas? How do I add my energies and talents to this equation so that we can create a roadmap to get there. And for the rest of the time, we now engage the team, we engage their creativity, and what spits out the back end of that retreat are some marching orders for how we're all going to work together and how we're going to make this vision come alive. And so it's a really that's probably the biggest way we help teams create transformation. We also do just one-on-one or group coaching for specific skills, specific communication skills. So, for example, we have a whole program on telephone training. We do training. We have downloadable training products. We take a little bit different tact because I believe so much in the untapped potential in most people. We're not big believers in scripting. I think most people don't want to read from a script. You and I, when we talked about this interview, we said it's better if we just have a conversation rather
Absolutely,
than, you send me all the questions and I write up a response. It's just better. And so I want people to trust themselves, but I do want them to have some skills and some protocols they can count on, that they can feel safe within and they can feel powerful within. So we teach them some protocols. We teach them some strategies. We teach them some sort of, systems to stay within, but within those, they can be who they are. If they're funny, we say, be funny. If you're soft and sweet, then be that. What we just want you to be still powerful in all those places and to be a really bigger you. And so we teach phone skills that way, and then we also provide mystery shopper call services for those that want them and want to just sort of test their abilities as they move forward. So we're not about yeah, we don't want to do it so that people get fired right away. That's not what we're after.
Yeah.
What we want is for people to not dread that. We want them to say, yeah, bring on the mystery shopper call so that I can sit down with my coach and review it and get the next 2 or 3 things that I can be working on. That's how people get big raises. That's how they move their own personal careers forward, is they get really good at those kinds of skills that are important to their position. And if they're up for that, if they're up for taking on the challenge of moving their professional career forward, they'll take on the challenge of a mystery shopper call. So we have those services available. We also do financial conversations and treatment presentation. Anything that's, like I said, anything that is a communications tool, we're going to probably be able to help the team with that. So that's really dental practices or discretionary healthcare practices or veterinary. We do all of that in those markets. We do have this simultaneous track, still under the umbrella of communications coaching, but because of the train the trainer adult learning interest that I've had, we've taken those workshops and really created some pretty amazing weekend. And so we have a workshop for people who aspire to be trainers or people who are internal trainers in a bigger company. So a lot of our large group dental practices or large medical group practices, corporate dental or medical, they have internal trainers, employees that are going around to multiple locations and creating consistency with the company systems. And so those people often were, again, good at their jobs, but still don't know how to train other adults to get results. And so we help them. We don't give them content in those workshops, but we help them take whatever content they're trying to teach and do that better. And then we also have a trained speaker. So people who are wanting to speak or, again, are internal in a corporation that they need to do some speaking either to big teams or, something like that. So we just yesterday finished our spring workshop and we had people there from Care Credit. We had internal people. We had internal people from Henry Schein, and we had a couple of independent consultants and trainers that are just looking to train and speak better. So it was a great big mixed group. We had a couple of managers from some corporate dental practices. So we're developing a workshop right now. It's kind of a boot camp for office managers, particularly those that are working in a multi-location group style practice. And have never had this kind of training. So that one will be a little bit of a hybrid. We're going to bring in what the verbal skills are that we teach, but we're also going to include the ways that we teach it. So we're going to show them how we workshop this. How do we bring a group together and teach phone skills? How do we bring a group together and teach financial conversations or chairside treatment presentations or those kinds of things? So that one will be a little bit of a hybrid to really develop that whole this whole new arena of office managers or practice administrators that are having to take on these management level skills, but they haven't had a lot of training in that. So we're excited about that new product. We're hoping to roll that out August or September. So.
Okay. What would be the name of the product, or what would be the name of the program?
We haven't officially named that, but
okay.
we haven't officially named it. I'm looking for kind of a catchy name, but it will definitely be sort of a boot camp for what our promise to the practice owners will be is that we're going to send you back mid-level or upper level managers to your business that know how to bring out the best in your people in a way that doesn't drive them from your business. So I think the dilemma is, how do we hold people accountable to the things we need them to do and the systems we need them to engage in? How do we hold them accountable but not make them angry with us, not make them resistant to us or feel like I can never measure up? And so that's a very specific set of skills to be able to have someone hear that they must do something and they must do it in a particular amount of time or in a particular way, and still feel more empowered than before they came into that conversation when they leave it.
Sure.
So that's the skill we're trying to teach, and that our promise will be that we're going to send them back. We're going to really put them, we're going to teach it to them, and then we're going to put them through the ringer so that they know how to handle conflict. They know how to manage those crucial conversations in a really elevated way. And I don't think as far as I know, there's nothing else on the market like what we're developing. And I think there's a huge need for it because we see the change, especially in dentistry, but even in healthcare and veterinary, it's the same. It's this influx of consolidation and corporate consolidation. And so they're swooping up talent that is technically talented but doesn't know how to teach and manage and motivate. And so I think there's a huge opportunity there for us to help those people, and we're excited about it, yeah. So we'll be rolling that out really soon. Mm-hmm.
That is really great. Thank you. Katherine, so for people listening to this podcast, is there anything special an offer you can make them, or is there something they can go online to look up?
Yeah, so we talked about what might be most interesting just as an entry-level sort of get acquainted offer that we could make to your listeners. And since my understanding is that most of these will be administrators or office personnel in a dental practice, we would love to have you make it easy for you to hear and test out our phone skills program. So we have a phone skills program called Have Them at Hello. It's an audio download with a PDF downloadable workbook, and we love it. It's been hands down our most popular product over the years. Again, it's a product that helps them do that without scripting, and it has all the tools in it. All of the telephone intake sheets and all that. It's all included, and normally that sells for $7.95, and we are offering it for $4.95 for your listeners. Yeah.
Thank you. So where would people find that?
They can go to the website and take a look at it, which is lionesslearning.com.
Okay.
And they'll just click on Have Them at Hello telephone skills, and it'll take them to all that information. But they can also just shoot us an email if they'd like, and we'll make sure that we get them the right registration page and make sure that we know they were on this call. So I would say if they go there and they look at it and they're interested, then shoot us an email. Send it to my assistant Kelly. So it's Kelly at lionesslearning.com, and let her know you were on the podcast today and you're a member of this network, and then we will make sure that you get the right discount for that.
Okay, and I'll put more information on the Facebook page. So in our Facebook group is called Front Office Success, and I started the name off as Front Office Success, but the more and more I talk to dental experts like yourself, it's not front office success. It's entire team success. It's the entire office success. So, and I don't want to make it sound like it's only front office. But the reason I named the front office is because my company trains more of the front office staff. We don't train the back office, but that's the reason why I bring experts like yourself who trains the entire office, and we put on we create more information for our listeners and for the people who enroll in the programs.
Well, what you're doing is really needed, because there's schools for dental assistants and there's schools for hygienists and doctors, but not so much for practice administrators and people that are working those frontline positions. And so, it's important that they have a place to go where they can be supported and they can learn some skills. So, yeah, kudos to you. I think there's a great need for it out there, and it's really a terrific service that you're offering. So anything we can do to support that, anything we can do, we'd love to.
Okay. Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you today. I was very very plugged into everything you said, and I know there's a lot more than what you just said. I mean, you're talking days and months of training, especially the transformational. I didn't realize how big of a question that was, the transformational training. People, we're talking of a lifetime of change that has to occur versus, somebody just coming talking to you for half an hour and just you're just a different person after that. It does take
Right. But you can start, I don't want to make it seem overwhelming either, right? You can get started on the smallest of things. And so sometimes people say, I felt transformed just working on a different way of looking at the phone, how much of service I could be and how easy that really was for me to do that. So we try so hard to just not make it complicated. How can we simplify it so you can remember it and you don't need, a big manual to do that? That's what we're after, is simplicity, clarity, and inspiration, and be who you are, because I think everybody's perfectly wired just like they are. So we just want, additional tools that just make it easy, and that's just really our goal. So it can be done, and just start small. Start with something like that, and if people are interested, we're just love to. All of our retreats are customized, so we start with a phone call. What do you think's in the way? Where do you want to go? And how can we design something so that you get there? And so, just let us know how we can help you. We have, by the way, we do those in the most interesting. We've done them at climbing gyms where they have a room where we can have our meeting, and then we do a team building event on the climbing walls. We've done them at adventure courses. We've done them at the San Diego Wild Animal Park and gotten a behind-the-scenes tour with the lions. We've done them at wineries and had cook-offs, with chefs, and just all kinds of different events where we use this really interesting team-building event to be the showcase for where we're going. And we usually pick someplace where we have a room that we can still have our meeting and do our work, but we're surrounded in a different environment that's very inspiring and very fun. So we really encourage everybody once a year to have an event like that where you rebond and you regroup and you just make sure that you're headed in a unified direction. So yeah.
All right.
So we invite it. We'd be glad to share information on that.
All right. Well, thank you, Katherine. I appreciate that. And I'll put a link for your website on the Facebook page. And
great.
Yeah, I look forward to speaking to you in a few months when you have the new program up and running too.
Yeah. Really excited about that, and we'll keep you posted on when we set those dates and we're ready to go.
Okay. Well, thank you, Katherine. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the listeners will get a lot out of this, and they're going to be able to get a lot more too once they call you and be able to download the product for the is it the
Have them at hello.
Have them at hello. Yeah. I have the acronym here, the HTAH. Have them at hello.
Yep. Well, we'd love to help you any way we can, and so just let us know. Our phone number is 800-595-7060, and website's Lioness Learning. And even when we launch the new site, we're hoping by August or so we'll have the new site up, but it'll all still link. It'll all still link to that. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for accepting the opportunity. So we'll talk to you in the future.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.